Police seize guns, drugs in nationwide crackdown, and internationally, Greenland's future sparks tensions between Denmark and Trump. Now for the details. Paria Fuel Trading Company has recovered 75% of $1.3 million lost in a phishing scam through a court settlement. The funds diverted to a U.S. account in 2022 were retrieved after legal proceedings revealed other parties were also defrauded. During a Public Accounts Committee session, Paria officials confirmed an internal investigation led to stricter policies and monthly staff training on cyber fraud. However, committee members raised concerns over accountability, with one member questioning why the employee who approved the payment faced no sanctions beyond re-education. The remaining funds are unlikely to be recovered. Police fraud squad investigations are ongoing. The Ministry of Health is gathering data and increasing education efforts in schools as it considers legislation to regulate vaping. Minister Terence Dayal Singh revealed the plans during a parliamentary committee meeting, highlighting concerns over vaping's popularity among teenagers. Dayal Singh emphasized that while no decision has been made to ban e-cigarettes, the data collected will guide future amendments to the Tobacco Act. Chief Medical Officer Dr. Roshan Parasram noted vaping's emerging cardiovascular risks, but said long-term effects remain unclear. Committee Chairman Paul Richards urged proactive action, citing other countries' bans and the alarming rise of vaping among school children. In the same session, Dayal Singh discussed the ongoing talks with fast food chains to promote healthier options, emphasizing the need for personal responsibility in healthy eating. Police operations over January 13th and 14th led to several arrests and the seizure of firearms, ammunition, and over $1.7 million worth of marijuana. In Chaguanas, a routine traffic stop uncovered 11.76 kilograms of marijuana in a vehicle. Meanwhile, in Tobago, officers seized a pistol, ammunition, and cannabis, arresting 3 men. Other raids in Tunapuna, St. James, and Arima resulted in multiple arrests, the discovery of tampered vehicles and cannabis plants. Investigations into all incidents are ongoing. Internationally, Denmark's Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen has reaffirmed Greenland's right to self-determination after U.S. President-elect Donald Trump revived interest in acquiring the Arctic territory. In a 45-minute phone call, Frederiksen told Trump that Greenland, which is an autonomous Danish territory, is not for sale, echoing statements from Greenland's Prime Minister Mute Egede. Trump, who proposed buying Greenland during his presidency in 2019, has not publicly responded but shared a poll suggesting Greenlanders favor independence from Denmark. Meanwhile, Frederiksen is holding emergency meetings with business leaders and politicians as Trump's threats of tariffs on Denmark heighten economic concerns. Greenland's government remains open to dialogue with the U.S., but opposition figures in Denmark have criticized Frederiksen for appearing to cede Danish sovereignty. The situation continues to escalate as Greenland's future remains a contentious issue. Well, that's news to the hour on WESN. I'm Naomi Macnish. Thanks for watching.
WESN. WESN.
conversation continues, but do we always get it right? One of the interesting things with regards to our national security and crime situation is quite frequently, or somewhat frequently, the topic of hangings, the death penalty, comes up with some sort of comment by a member of the public who is either a victim or is commenting on a crime that hangings need to be resumed. Now, in and of itself, the statement hangings need to be resumed is open-ended enough that it does not necessarily breach any realm of inaccuracy. What breaches the realm of inaccuracy is when people say hangings need to be made legal again, which technically there are still laws on the books that has the death penalty. In fact, I do believe for the most part the penalty for murder is the death penalty. But because of various technicalities and deficiencies in the processes, we get what we get. Now, to be fair to the victim who made the statement in this case, it was an attempted robbery, maybe home invasion, early hours of the morning. It was reported that the victim went to walk his dog after 4 a.m. and he was out in his yard around 5 a.m. This is a hell of a thing for me to say, I'm going to admit it, but perhaps we all need to rethink being outside in the wee early hours of the morning. But regardless, the victim was saved by his nephew, and due to the traumatic event that he went through, at the end of the day, whether or not he could have avoided it by staying inside. Now, he went to walk his dog, so it is what it is, right? You don't necessarily want your dog to do the business inside the house. But regardless of if he could have avoided it, it's a hell of a thing that he would have to in the first place. So he called, or he made the statement that hanging should be resumed. Part of my issue is that people don't always understand why they aren't being done. But then part of it is that the conversation ends there. And also, while we might have members of the TTPS media ambassadors, criminologists, national security experts, political scientists, and lawyers all speak within the media and the public sphere about the fact that technically the death penalty is still in the books, we don't actually see the policymakers have any meaningful discussions on that situation. I don't know if they've resigned themselves to being unable to fix it. They resign themselves to not changing the laws because it might be too hard, or they don't have an interest to do either one of those things, or to address the matter in any way. Now, I say that, and I'm not trying to make assumptions on the motivations behind it. It could be a whole host of things, many of which we might not even be able to speculate or think of because we are not in the position that policymakers and parliamentarians are in. But as a population, I do find it very, very interesting that we could lament the fact, oh gosh, we should resume hangings. Now, of course, there's a subsection of the population also that doesn't want to see that happen. I understand their argument. There's a part of me that agrees with them, there's a part of me that doesn't. It's an unfortunate time that we find ourselves in. But this is part of what I mean when I say we can't just kind of put our heads in the sand and expect our problems to be solved by others, because to some extent that's how we treat politicians. They are others. They aren't us. And I understand we are not politicians, they are politicians. But to some extent, it's almost like if we don't want the responsibility of the country. So we don't vote, too many of us, and then we complain about what's going on, but we expect the people that we complain about to fix the problems that we have, without us putting any meaningful participation, contributing anything meaningful, giving any meaningful support. No, you fix the problem. It's a you problem. We don't like it, but it's a you problem. We will not contribute to the discussion past this point to basically say, fix it. How? We don't know how. That's your job. That's what we, especially we who didn't vote, put you there for. Low voter turnout is a hell of a thing. But I'll leave that there. I'll leave that there. I don't want to go on too much about this because it's a hell of a time to live, right? Now, unfortunately, Peter might pay for Paul. There's a report that a Good Samaritan was robbed of his vehicle because he dropped off somebody else and then a third party approached them asking for assistance to get a ride to go somewhere. Only for that third party, when they reached the destination, to essentially announce a robbery, and an associate of his also came into the car. They proceeded to relieve the person of his car, his cell phones, cash, and personal documents. Why would you take personal? Well, sorry, it was in a black pouch. So they just took all the man's stuff, including stuff that may have little value to him. To them. It will have value to him, the victim. What does this story tell us? Now, to some extent, I'm sure a lot of people would be wary about giving strangers rides, and I will say this, I am someone who has benefited from the generosity of strangers giving me rides at times. Although more often than not, they kind of were acquainted with me, they kind of knew me from afar, so it wasn't all, I wasn't a complete stranger most times. So, there's a part of me, however, at least in one instance that I can remember, a stranger helped me out, or at least was concerned for my safety, let's put it that way, or my condition or situation. And there's a part of me that would not want to then go forward with my life and not reciprocate, not be willing to show similar concern. But look at the times we're in. That's why I say Peter might have to pay for Paul. Now it's no longer safe to do charity. Now apparently a criminal had a smart idea to take advantage of someone's generosity. And this is when evil gets on a next level, they utilize things like cries for help and emergency to manipulate people, to put themselves in a vulnerable situation to be taken advantage of. And what does that mean? That means that it's harder and harder now for those that actually have legitimate calls for help to receive that help. So I want to caution people in the lower economic bracket that think, because these things exist, right? Some of the gangsters, they're the most giving. Oh, look, here's some money to help you out. Here's an appliance. Here's a hamper. Here's a turkey or whatever, right? Or you don't know where your grandson or your son or your nephew, what they're doing to make money, but there's always food in the fridge and they could fix the washing machine and all of that. Well, there's a price to pay. And at some point, as crime continues to get worse and worse, more often than not, those who are going to be victimized, both by the crime and by the consequences, intentional or not, of the situation, will be the people in the lower economic bracket, who to some extent, some of whom, not all, it could be a very small minority, are experiencing some benefits of not talking out, speaking out, reporting to the police. But those things are fleeting. Lastly, it's a hell of a time that we live in, right? A time when you could try and do something for somebody and get robbed in the process. You know, your generosity gets rewarded by such a betrayal, essentially, of trust. Even though you don't know the person, that's a social contract that we have in the moment. I'm helping you, please don't be the scorpion that's going to sting me in the back. Don't give evidence that apparently this is your nature. Well, a hell of a time to live in. So there's a report that apparently the population is drinking and smoking more. Now, I do believe that the data point is not saying that people are consuming more alcohol per person, but potentially more people might be consuming, going past a certain threshold of consumption. The stress. Ironically, I myself am drinking less than when I was in my 20s, but c'est la vie. Maybe it's something I need to guard myself from as someone that has to consume the news daily and deal with some of the upsetting news. I'm not surprised that a lot of people, this might be one of the few things they have to stress release. It's not just that we're a nation of alcoholics, but when now potentially our movements are being restricted. There's no curfew, but crime is restricting us. The times we could go out, where we could go out, you know, who we could associate with, depending. So activities become more restricted. It's not so safe to go in certain rural parts of the country at certain hours anymore. Stay home and drink at home. Or find a trusted local watering hole and drink there. Drink by yourself. Or you go out to a restaurant, hey, life is too stressful, work is too stressful, the crime is too stressful, have a drink with dinner. Have another drink with dinner. Have a third drink. Go to the restaurant, you're not even going to the restaurant to have dinner, you're just going to the restaurant to drink. All of these things are possible. We cannot take it for granted that we are a nation that likes to celebrate and party and lime and take a little drink, but perhaps we run the risk that that part of our culture goes out of control to compensate for some of the other deficiencies. And then what will happen? Smoking too. It's a hell of a stress relief, right? Not only does it cost us money, but it's not entirely the healthiest thing to do, on top of our eating habits, which also reportedly may have gotten worse as well. But we could drink, or we could maybe do something about it by being part of the process. I don't know. Maybe there's other options. Skipping town, going abroad, abandoning ship. If everybody abandons ship, well then what's left? Who knows? All right. Before we welcome my colleague, let's get down into more technical matters with today's daily review. While I was hesitant to come back to this story, because this is the third day in a row when I say lead story in daily review, but I couldn't help but a lot of the other things are more of a housekeeping stuff, some quick hit stories. This one, to me, is one of the bigger narratives that's ongoing that I want to get into from my perspective, of things I see importance. And that, of course, is, again, the Prime Minister made the comments about police officers hiding in the stations, right? Now, one of the key things with regards to the pushback by the stakeholders within the police service and former commissioners of police, or a former commissioner of police, is that they did not outright say that the Prime Minister was lying or was factually incorrect or anything within that realm. They didn't say he was wrong to say it, but they did, however, say things like, if it is true, they left room open for it to be true, whatever it is. Now, the opposition leader has decided to criticize the Prime Minister on this statement, and this is part one of two different perspectives on this matter that I find interesting, and the comparison, I think, is something we could learn from. The opposition leader is basically saying, well, if the police are cowards, give up your police security detail. The problem is when you go further, or the implication of the opposition leader's statements are that, one, she did not properly do listening comprehension in this situation, and two, there are further implications of what her statements might mean with regards to future policy decisions down the road, because she's basically implying that, look, you're being insulting and disrespectful for the police. If you think they're all cowards, give up your detail, because why are you being protected by cowards? The problem is the Prime Minister didn't say all police. He said some, in some districts, in some stations. He actually went triple layered of the sum. So when you actually do the average out the math, he's saying a fraction. More importantly, he's saying something that I believe the population has experienced, and at least one caller has more or less said something to the effect that makes what the Prime Minister said, or supports the veracity of what the Prime Minister said. I did say maybe the motivations of them being cowards, right, might not be actually the case, but he's speaking about a situation that citizens have experienced firsthand for themselves. What is the point of trying to hide this? Because we have to worry about people's feelings. Whereas the fact of the matter is the feelings of the population who experiences it and the feelings of the officers who work hard getting the blowback from other citizens over the bad apples. We don't care about those feelings. So the opposition leader is basically saying, well, is trying to take the Prime Minister's position and ironically apply it in a broader brush than he did. Which, that's why I said, you know, I now have to question the listening comprehension here because he made specific statements, criticize him on the specifics of what he said, not on the generalization of what he said. It doesn't leave me in a place to feel confident in your arguments when there is that obvious hole to me. Maybe to other people it's fine for you to generalize and simplify, but to me, I don't like it and I have a hard time taking what you are saying seriously if that's what you're going to do. Further on, if you want to push back that strongly, because again, criminologists, the police, maybe not the association, but criminologists, the commissioner, etc., they left room open. They did not outright deny what the Prime Minister said. They left room open to say if it is true. They left the possibility of if. The opposition leader, to some extent, did not. She wanted to have a strong message. I understand that. One of the issues is the political environment of our population is that if you don't speak strongly about something, they won't believe you. They would think you're too soft, that you're trying to hedge your bets or something along those lines. So to some extent, I do understand. But this is the flip side to that. By pushing back so strongly, are you thus implying that there's nothing wrong with the police service? Because again, what the Prime Minister said was along the lines of things that members of the population have experienced. And he's not saying it's all. And I get it. A lot of times when you try to say some, people just want to assume you're saying all. He's not saying all, right? And again, if this was not something that the population themselves have experienced, then I wouldn't necessarily defend his position and his statements as strongly as I do. But if you want to push back against it to this extent, you are implying that the experiences and the complaints of the population are overblown. And that if you are voted into office, you don't see a problem here, so why would you fix it? There's nothing to fix. That's the implication. Not that she said it directly, not that she connected all the dots to get to that conclusion, but to some extent, if you are going to generalize and kind of not necessarily speak to the specifics of what the Prime Minister said, other people will to some extent make assumptions of your positions and where they would eventually conclude to and your motivations for certain things and your philosophies on certain things. And then, if you're inaccurate about others, others could come back and be inaccurate about you. Meanwhile, and ironically this is in the same report, Israel Khan, president of the Criminal Bar Association, his criticisms are different. He's quoted as saying, what this tells the country is that the present government has been doing its incompetent best and this cannot save us from the mayhem and crisis of unprecedented murders. This is the thing. I agree with this criticism because while I acknowledge that the Prime Minister was speaking a truth, the fact of the matter is it's not a pleasant truth and he is the Prime Minister. So for him to say there's a problem with the police that I don't agree with, well, part of the issue is you've been overseeing the situation indirectly, but with enough authority to have some sort of impact to try to rectify the situation. So the fact that we've come to this point that you are claiming that there's an issue here, well, look, the buck stops at you. So it's hard. Yes, I appreciate the fact that you are willing to reveal an inconvenient truth. But it's inconvenient because it's inconvenient to your administration as well, not just to the police service, right? It's not just the government's fault. There are other stakeholders who had a hand in whatever the customer service of the police force and how they treat with situations wherever it reached and the levels of crime. But government of the day is one of the people whose hands are in the pot. The police executive, the police service commission, other stakeholders, other areas of influence. But the government is part of it. Is more significant of a part than many others. So Israel Khan is not debating about if the police are cowards or not, or how true the statement is or not. No, he's saying you are putting forward a scenario that is potentially revealing the fact that, look, the situation of which you have oversight over because you're the government has reached a point that you don't like it. Well, whose fault is that? That's reasonable criticism based on this situation. And I'll say this, I didn't necessarily outright say it because the context of where I was at the time, I didn't necessarily want to have a hard and fast political debate, but I more or less implied as much to multiple people of the People's National Movement at an event that happened this week. Now, hopefully, they got the message. I wasn't necessarily there to just sing all the praises. So, but I was willing to be upfront with them. And at the end of the day, it was what it was. It was what it was. It was an acknowledgement that, hey, the communication that the Prime Minister gave over this issue, he left himself in a bit of a bind. Mr. Khan has some reasonable arguments. And that's why the comparison of the two, I think it's very interesting because one, I think in the long run, is actually a similar mistake to what the Prime Minister himself made. The opposition leader is repeating just in a different way. I have the director jumping with this one. But the other criticisms from Israel Khan, I think, is pointing to the heart of the matter. The government is responsible at the end. The buck stops at them. And that's where, if we have criticisms, we should have it on an issue like this. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll welcome my colleague. Stay tuned to Talking about the WSN. We'll be right back after this.
Do you need treatment for obesity or any related abdominal procedures? The community hospital now offers minimally invasive laparoscopic surgery done by an American-trained, board-certified surgeon with over 20 years' experience. Give us a call at 235-5479 for more information.
The Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
Transform your home with PCU Plus. From stylish furniture to the latest appliances, we have everything you need to create your perfect space. At PCU Plus, we offer fair prices and affordable financing options that are cheaper than hire purchase agreements. With convenient locations in San Fernando, Tobago, Arima, and our lifestyle showroom in Barataria, you're never far from the best deals. Visit PCU Plus today and discover why we're the top choice for quality furniture and appliances. PCU Plus. Quality you trust, prices you'll love. Visit one of our locations or find us online to start transforming your home today.
Simon's Musical Supplies Limited. We are the specialist in new and used musical instruments, carrying top brands like Yamaha, Pearl River pianos, vinyl and Sabian cymbals, Remo and Evans drumheads and Fender guitars, just to name a few. Also a wide assortment of music books, pan and accessories. At Simon's, we service what we sell. Trust the leader. Call us now at 625-6412 or visit us at 20 Board Street, Port of Spain. SM Group International Limited, your solutions partner for the latest innovations, brands and competent staff to meet your needs. We provide products and services in the following divisions: executive services, event rental and services, power and heavy equipment, construction and property management, food and beverage, aggregate and sales and distribution. Check out more on our products and services at www.smgrouptt.com. Contact us at 221-7445 or email at info@smgrouptt.com. We are SM Group International, your solutions partner.
The best for your baby is at thebesttoys.com. From the best strollers, car seats, baby carriers, high chairs, booster seats, rockers, jumpers and bouncers, walkers, baby blankets, feeding accessories, bathtubs. Visit us in store at Forces Flagship McLean. Shop online now at thebesttoys.com. Order via call or WhatsApp at 332-BABY. And remember, we have the best toys at the best prices.
And we're back here and talking about the WSND Content Capital Show. Michael Small, joined by my colleague, the one and only, the Shah of AM Prime, is Keaton Shah. Good morning, Keaton.
Good morning, Sean. How are you?
Yeah, it took 4 years or 2 years for me to use that one, but it was
the Shah of AM Prime.
The Shah of AM Prime. Yeah, it was so obvious. It was like, why did it take so long for me to get there? But we've gotten there. Now, one of the things I wanted to speak to you about, Keaton, maybe kind of continue our overall conversations. We have elections coming up. We know you and I were there when the Prime Minister, I guess you could say, gave what probably will not be the last of his set of retirement speeches, where I found it to be quite interesting, and I was also appreciative that to some extent you and I were witnesses of a very small part of what ultimately would be our nation's history. Here we have a sitting Prime Minister retiring. But beyond the PNM situation, there of course is other parties that in theory are contesting the next year election, and from what I understand, you spoke to the political leaders of 2 of them this morning, or you spoke to representatives of 2 parties, and I do wonder, Keaton, what have you necessarily changed your stance on third parties? Do you have more, quote-unquote, hope that they might have a bigger effect, or do you think that maybe more strongly that the population is not really going to take them on? Like, where do you stand right now? Because I myself was hoping that the third parties might cause a little bit more disruption than normal, but I'm not too sure if that is a false hope right now.
I spoke to Prakash Ramanal this morning as the new political leader, or retaining as political leader of the Congress of the People, and he made his intentions very clear. He plans to rebuild the party, and that's going to take some work. But he also has indicated his willingness, and I gather it's more or less been decided that they will join the United National Congress in the election race. And that in itself is something that needs to be ironed out, because there was an understanding, at least between the COP, HOPE, and the NTA, that they will forge an alliance. Now, the thing is that if you are going forward with forming a coalition of some sort with the United National Congress, what does that mean for the NTA, which its political leader, Gary Griffith, and the political leader of the UNC, or the deputy political leaders of the UNC, seem to have had a bit of falling out for whatever reason. I also spoke to David Abdullah, who's the political leader of the MSG, they're not running in the election race this year. They're actually focusing on building the party and trying to advocate for addressing a number of issues before the general election is due in 2030. But a lot can change between now and 2030. 5 years is not a long time in respect to a political term, uh, but certainly is a lot of time generally. So we'll see what transpires there. But as it relates to my opinions on third parties, at this point, I can't say that I've gained any sort of excitement from third parties. I haven't gained any excitement at all from the elections coming up. I started the year by saying it's going to be exciting. I did indicate that following what was taking place with the resignation of Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley, or the impending resignation rather, and the incoming Stuart Young. And I did indicate it was going to be exciting. We saw what was taking place internally with the People's National Movement. But at this point, it's mellowed a bit. So it seems as though it's a back and forth between the opposition and the NTA. Hope has indicated that they're in the process of gearing up for the election and for putting together its candidates, and that the party's building. The COP has suddenly been born again. You know, the COP has come back to life following the appointment of Prakash Ramla as political leader. The Patriotic Front, led by Michaela Pandey, has opened nominations. Still awaiting to see what's going on with that party. Michaela Pandey seems to pop up now and again, which isn't necessarily a good thing. You know, she carries the Pandey name, which in itself holds a lot of weight and will hold a lot of support. But, you know, popping up now and again and not having a clear vision, clear idea, clear understanding, or even a manifesto does not really all go well. And I hope that people, you know, think about these things when they look at any political party. But as it stands, Sean, there's very little to be excited about. The gutter politics has also started between the United National Congress and the NT. It's very unfortunate that we're heading down this road. So for all that has transpired in the People's National Movement over the last 2 weeks, always indicated that their PR machinery has always been excellent. And therefore, at this point, they seem to be, they seem to be, and you know, I hope people don't jump on me for this, but they seem to be still the most stable of parties that exist.
Stable, but it seems as though we might actually see not just the leader of the party change with Dr. Keith Rowley's retirement, but a bit of a youth movement, not necessarily widespread, but there are more and more new candidates being put forward, younger candidates. Right now, it seems as though the situation in Diego Martin West is not going to go automatically to Dr. Brown, as four party groups have met, and so far those party groups have nominated Hans Devines, not Dr. Me Brown. That's one report from one of the daily newspapers this morning. So it's I don't know what that would necessarily mean for Dr. Brown's political career, or if that's an indicator of what's going on with the PNM. Of course, we know what happened in Laventille West with regards to the current MP Fitzgerald Hines, and that constituency saying, no, we want some fresh blood as well. So when you look at that, I think legitimately the excitement actually is coming from the PNM. We're seeing changes. We're seeing some new things happening. And the one thing with changes is you would hope that would mean that, all right, we might not like where the current administration is going, but changes might mean a change in how they operate in the future. Whereas with some of the current...
You know, no, Sean, no, that's a very good point that you've made, and I couldn't agree with you more. The thing is that this is where the PNM, we can debate their governance, we can debate their policies, all right? There's not going to be a lot in favor of them, and there are going to be those that support them, as is with any political institution. But the PNM's ability to navigate this political climate, in the sense that they are able to shift, they are able to evolve, not necessarily the politics that is practiced, but definitely the faces within the party. And that in itself shows that there is some sort of transformation, as you indicated, that is taking place. What is happening in Diggle Martin West is very interesting in the sense that Dr. Amory Brown is an established politician. He's also a politician that came in under the wing of Patrick Manning. He entered the PNM under Patrick Manning. So he was seen really as a Manningite, as he used to refer to them. But it doesn't necessarily automatically means that he's going to walk into a seat. Now, in my opinion, he's one of the better politicians. He's a statesman, and really he's a diplomat. And I mean, he's the Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs. You would expect that to be the case. However, he is a statesman. He's very much well spoken and very much highly regarded, at least in my opinion. But that does not mean that he's going to be the right fit. Has he been on the ground? Do the people of Diggle Martin West see him? Do they know him? Does he have a vision for the constituency? Has he worked with constituents? Those are things that are going to be crossing the mind of these individuals in the constituency and even the party group. So you're right, that is something to look forward to. But generally speaking, it's the PNM's ability to try and really reinvent itself. We saw a reinvention of the PNM back in 2010 following that election defeat to the People's Partnership when Patrick Manning exited. Dr. Keith Rowley came in, brought in new faces, excellence in opposition. And for the 2015 general election, the campaign for them was quite easy. The campaign for them for the 2015 election was quite easy. They brought in new faces. And that is happening again. You see that happening again. So if you take a look at that, but then you take a look at what MP Michelle Benjamin is saying about the United National Congress, how it does not need a shift, how it doesn't need to reinvent itself. I keep seeing that forging political alliances or signing memorandums of understanding, signing this declaration does not mean that you are transforming yourself, does not mean that you are upgrading the party and signaling that we are different, that we are prepared, that we are ready, that we are bringing about something different. We're not just exchanging what currently exists. So it really is two different tales. When Vasant Bharat, who was critical of the United National Congress, just a few weeks before he joined the party, he said people view the PNM and the UNC as being two sides of the same coin. And remember that statement. That came from Vasant Bharat. A couple weeks later, he joined the UNC, and he was very much aligning with whatever their visions and values are. But now, if you take a look at that coin, there is shift and transformation happening in one party, while the other party is hoping that the formation of alliances equates to an election victory. Really, the tales are very much different.
And also, it's how the shift is happening. Because, yes, some people might say the thing with Stuart Young, undemocratic, what have you. But Kareem Marcel and Hans Devines, it seems as though, look, the internal processes of the party, the people who live there, the members of the party of that constituency, they're speaking out. And at the end of the day, I mean, we don't know exactly everything that goes on behind the scenes, but at the very least, there is the appearance that the internal democratic process, at least part of it in the PNM, is alive and well. Meanwhile, when we look at the COP and the UNC situation in particular, I mean, think about it, the COP had changed technically. They transitioned to two interim leaders and went back to the last guy, essentially, of the partnership. Meanwhile, as you pointed out, and what I don't understand, because I haven't heard a political analyst agree with this take yet, Dr. Sheikh Mohammed has probably the most outspoken take on this. He says the UNC needs a facelift. The UNC itself says no. So we're basically looking at two parties being static who have their own potential issues with not necessarily looking as though they have an internal democratic process per se, right? Where it's the business as usual, who's in charge dictates, the political leader dictates to the rest of the party what's going on. And essentially, arguably, we're closer to a retread of 2015 than seeing anything new and exciting with this alliance. When you think about it, they're getting the band back together, but the band lost. The band didn't win. And in some ways, they're not just saying, we don't need a facelift, they're kind of going in reverse. And when you compare that, I find with the PNM, the only party right now that besides the PNM that's potentially offering anything truly new would be the NTA. The PEP, Mr. Alexander left and came back and dictated to his party that he's coming back. Again, where's the internal process there?
Sean, the PEP stands for Philip Edwards Party. It doesn't stand for Progressive Empowerment Party. It's Philip Edwards Party. That's what the PEP stands for. I think people need to understand that's what the acronym truly was intentionally meant to be. But in relation to the United National Congress, all is not necessarily lost at this time. They have remained quiet as it relates to candidates and the announcement of those whom they are nominating to run for various seats in the election. I think thus far they've called only 7 or 8 positions, and they're not running in Tobago either. So you know, it's still a bit early. You know, we're having a discussion, we're having a bit of a debate based off what we know up until this point. However, following, you know, Prakash Ramana's appointment to the COP, and it seems as though for all intents and purposes, copyright Sean Michael Small, that he will be joining the United National Congress. So you don't know if the COP has the support or even the individuals to run as candidates in these seats. You're right, though. The only party which has showed something different thus far, and I'm talking about faces, and I'm talking about even in respect to just generally being more and more vocal and out there, is the NTA. It is the National Transformation Alliance. The other party which exists, which is Hope, has indicated that they are working, that they are building, and in all fairness, we will see what happens there. However, at this point, the 4 faces of the party in Timothy Hammersmith, Steve Alvarez, Louis Leasing, and Karenu Sashera, you'd argue is nothing necessarily new. Does that equate to some sort of excitement? And that's what I'm seeing. That is what I'm seeing within the People's National Movement, as you pointed out as well. The ability to field these candidates. The politics might not change, but new faces might get some people excited. With Curry Marcel in that seat, he's more or less already won that seat. You know, we're not going to try and debate that. That's more or less a clear indication. The PNM has never lost the Laventille seat, so he's more or less taken that seat already. But the thing is, he could probably get a lot more support from youth, from young people, which is very, very important. The good thing, the positive thing about Stuart Young being in the position that he's in is quite possibly being able to appeal to younger people. So you have to say hats off to Dr. Keith Rowley in exiting his position. You have to say that also is a true testament to leadership, knowing when your time is up. Knowing when your time is up and knowing when it's time for you to exit. Even if people are making an argument, well, there clearly is some underlying reasons that we aren't aware of taking place. No, at least we know when he stated his intention in 2020, his time is up. And you have to say kudos for that. The thing with Stuart Young, though, which is, for me, more interesting, is the fact that the PNM will always have its base support. And I don't think the PNM base support will be too unhappy about Stuart Young. I don't think so, and I could be very much wrong about that. I don't think so, and thus far I don't really get that impression. What I'm interested to see is if he runs as the leader for the PNM in the general election, because he's taken over from Dr. Keith Rowley, but if he runs as the leader for the PNM in the general election, whenever that is called, whenever that is held, I like to see that. You finally have someone who is not Afro-Trinidadian leading what has been deemed or be seen as the Afro-Trinidadian party. And for me, that is something big. I like that. I like that. I can appreciate that. So these are the little snippets that one says, okay, things are a bit different, things are gearing up. Am I excited? No, not too excited as yet, but there are developments taking place which you could look forward to.
I find it very interesting that you said that the PNM's base probably won't, or something to the effect of you don't think that they would outright reject Stuart Young. It's not as negative as maybe we could have initially assumed or feared it might be. Because as you were saying that, I thought of something similar as what you said to your follow-up, that to some extent, if the PNM, who is seen as the Afro-Trinbagonian party, goes with another Afro-Trinbagonian, on some level, although I don't think this should be a major consideration, the demographic appeal is staying in their lane. And you're kind of not really doing anything to try to appeal to other voters who are not supporters in order to grow your support base. Not your core base, but your overall support. And one of the things that the PNM have quietly done is they have diversified their slate, ironically. When you look at their slate, it's not like a 90% Afro-Trinbagonian slate and then a 5 to 10% other, right? It's pretty diverse, and yet to some, and it's good in the sense that they have not lost their base. It's bad in the sense that I don't know if they have been able to fully appeal to other racial demographics in the country. But Stuart Young now being the political leader, potentially, not guaranteed, but potentially allows for that, because as much as there's racial politics, at the very least, voters cannot necessarily paint him completely in the same light as they would an Afro-Trinbagonian, however you interpret that statement. The flip side to that is he might be seen as the 1%, the this, the that, the man from the West, and blah, 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 blah. So it will be interesting to see how the population responds, because Mr. Manning was from South, Dr. Trolley was from Tobago, A.N.R. Robinson was from Tobago, Mr. Pandey was from South. This is one of the first candidates, major candidates, coming from the northwest region of the country. And that and all is a whole new question that we don't necessarily have the answer to. Not just Port of Spain, but we're talking about the 1% region of Port of Spain, right? How will the population respond? Will they give him trust? Will they give him suspicion? We don't necessarily know. But if he can continue holding on to the support of the true core base of the party, then it does at least bode well for him in the future to widen the voting support of the PNM. And again, it goes back to the fact that the UNC looks, by comparison, and it's not a large comparison, right? But by comparison, they look more stagnant, particularly, I think, if you look at things in the long run. Whereas one party is doing its best to try and diversify, whether some people might say it's the lip service or not. The other one isn't quite as successful, and maybe that's why their base support is not as large as the PNM's, and that's why they lost the last two elections.
I think when it comes to the elections, I think, usually speaking, the number of votes that the UNC takes from an election are usually are larger in count as compared to the People's National Movement, and that's the whole argument about proportional representation, etc. And that's certainly a conversation to have for another time. The thing is, though, and I think, you know, whilst we've had this conversation this morning, and have looked at the ability of parties to transform, I think we can't necessarily rule out the United National Congress as yet. And I say that knowing that we still do not have a lot of information as it relates to candidates in other seats. For example, the PNM has decided to once more put up Renuka Sargam Singh Supral for the seat of St. Augustine. She's been nominated to contest that seat. She contested it in 2020, and she was unsuccessful. Khadija Amin won that seat. But then you have Khadija Amin. Is she going to be contesting that seat again for the United National Congress? Or is Vasan Barrett going to take that seat? You know, and that's what I'm saying. It's not necessarily going to be a new face, but it is still probably someone who can bring some excitement given their work back in 2010 to 2015. Possibly. It's whatever people are thinking on the ground. But the whole point of it is, we can't count the UNC out just as yet. They've remained silent. I'm sure that they've been observing. I'm sure that they're making plans behind closed doors. What exactly those plans are, we don't know. Only time will tell. Who knows? We could be completely wrong in this conversation this morning. And next week, the United National Congress makes some announcement that has us very excited, that has us saying, okay, we see you. We see what's taking place there. All right, this is something to pay close attention to. Or who knows? Maybe we'd be having the same conversation in a month before general election, or when the actual date is announced. We might be having the same conversation. Who knows? The whole point about it is right now there is an ideal opportunity. An ideal opportunity. It's on a platter. It's being laid out in front of you for the United National Congress to evolve. I disagree with MP Michelle Benjamin when she says the UNC does not need a facelift. I don't know exactly which face she's looking at in the UNC when she says that, but believe you me, they need a facelift. And I think it's being laid out on a platter. It's an ample opportunity. Take it, use it to your advantage if you are genuinely interested in winning an election. If you much rather be in opposition and enjoy the perks that comes with being in opposition, and need I say, at times, an ineffective opposition, fine. Remain as stagnant as you are and hope that people who have become so frustrated with how the PNM is operating and hope that people are so not even involved or don't care to be involved in our political climate given what is happening just swings in your favor. Hope for that.
Yeah, I mean, I understand the UNC wins the popular vote, but at the end of the day, the way how the distribution is and the constituencies, in theory, right, the PNM commands. It's a weird thing. They all have their pros and cons. But with regards to the UNC needing a facelift, Keaton, I also agree with you. I have two questions with regards to that. The first one is directly with regards to what you said there on a facelift. Now, from what I gather, Dr. Shea Mohammed, when he says UNC needs a facelift, he is saying the slate around the leader. But I want to ask you, do you think that a facelift means the slate around the leader or replacing the senior people, including the leader?
I think it's both. I think it's both. I think it's both in the sense that the executive of the party are also key players in the party, as is in the People's National Movement. When I say key players, I'm talking about in respect to candidates and ministers, etc., etc. I think that the opposition leader needs to, as we said in the results called the local government elections, as we said back in 2020, we went on air back in 2020, but we've had conversations since. And all of them lead up to answering your question and simply saying the opposition leader needs to reassess herself once more. And the party needs to reassess to see whether or not she is the ideal person to lead not just the party, but by extension the country. Is Kamala Persad-Bissessar capable of running? And don't come and tell me, oh, well, she did it in 2010 to 2015. What happened between 2010 and 2015 at this point is largely irrelevant. Right? So we can't even, we need to stop going back to that point, and we need to stop celebrating first woman prime minister and whatnot. Yes, I get that. It was an achievement. Every year we get messages from the UNC on the anniversary of the election. Great. Is Kamala Persad-Bissessar in 2025 capable? Does she have the ability to lead not just the United National Congress, but also the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago? Is she the right person or the best candidate that the United National Congress has to lead itself and, by extension, the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago? There was an internal election last year. She won as political leader. Great. I'm not disputing that. Fine, no problem. But it's that same point that I'm making. The inability for the United National Congress to evolve or for a paradigm shift to take place, that could be its setback. And the executive as well, I think, need to change. There needs to be some reinvigoration in the party. Right? And even if the executives don't change, perhaps it's time to look at fielding new candidates. And there are those who have bowed out and said, you know what, I'm done with this. It's time we bring somebody else in. Somebody else who not only has the energy, but also probably the capacity, the brain capacity, the knowledge, the ideas to do this. And one such individual is Rodney Charles. So again, opportunities exist. Are they taking it? Nah, not
Well,
at this time anyway.
well, here's the other question. Now, one of the low-hanging and obvious fruits. I know that I can't say that this is likely. It's probably very unlikely given the nature of politics in the country. But hey, Vasa Marat came back into the fold. So let's just assume this is possible. And I'm going to ask the question of what if it happens? What if the remaining 4 dissidents who have not decided to retire, if they reconcile with the UNC, might that be enough to give a spark of something into their situation, right? I mean, at the end of the day, I'm not entirely, I don't know how that would play out, but at least to me, it would be an interesting development.
Sean, they never fell out with the UNC. It's the UNC that fell out
Well,
with them.
if the UNC reconciles with them, then.
Yeah, no, they never fell out with the UNC. It's the UNC that fell out with them. So a matter of reconciliation, it should have happened already if that was the case.
But Keaton, I'm not asking about if it can happen.
nominated.
Keaton, it's not about if. It's not about if it can happen. I'm saying if it does happen, let's just go to the point that it does happen. Might that be enough? Would it give enough of a spark? Would it move the needle enough? Or would it just be a blip?
Not necessarily. It's going to be just a blip. Sure, they might retain their constituencies if they are nominated. Rushton Parry, Dinesh Rambali, and Anita Haynes, because I believe Rai Rathbone, he said, I'm done with this. I'm not going to be a part of this. It's a similar thing. Well, no, Rodney Charles is definitely out. But, as I said, they can probably retain their constituencies. That doesn't necessarily mean that the party has transformed or is presenting anything different. No, so I don't expect a lot at this time, at least at this time with what we've given thus far. As I said, my biggest disappointment is the gutter politics, the nasty politics. I was hoping we were over this. I was hoping we were getting out of this. We were moving away from this, but that in itself, the mere fact that we are returning to gutter politics, the mere fact that we see that happening once more says that transformation ain't happening anytime soon. That an evolution or even a paradigm shift is far from becoming. So, Sean, let them retain their constituencies. That doesn't mean anything.
The last thing I want to ask before we take the break. Now, when Kamala Prasad-Bissessar was elected, and I've said this before, I was more than willing to give her a chance. I didn't judge her based on her track record, and her administration was what it was, her time in office was what it was. Similar to Dr. Keith Rowley, I was more than willing to kind of set aside all my preconceived notions when he came into office. And in both cases, they started off when I was kind of satisfied with how things were going, and then issues came up, right? In both cases, different issues. They are what they are. Dr. Keith Rowley having significantly, twice the amount of time in office, so arguably, just because of that, more issues came up during his 2 terms as opposed to her 1. Now, potentially, we have a new challenger in the specific arena of the seat of Prime Minister in Stuart Young. The Tutor President basically said that while that it's reported they are cautiously optimistic on changes of the syllabus, they're not necessarily looking to prejudge Mr. Young on what his policy decisions might be. So dare I ask your opinion on, how hopeful are you, or how wary yet willing are you to consider Stuart Young as potentially bringing a new way of doing things, so that when they say we're going to make changes, we're not automatically thinking, oh, well, it's the same old, really?
Young has to prove himself to be different to what he was a part of previously. I mean, I'm not entirely pleased and convinced that this PNM administration has done the very best of what it could have done given the time. I really don't think so. And I know that there were challenges along the way. I acknowledge those challenges, such as the COVID-19 pandemic being a major part of it that impacted our economy big time. And you know, once your economy is impacted, everything else tends to have a knock-on effect. But he needs to prove himself different as compared to what came before. And he has to question as to whether or not his vision or his policies are very much different to what the party was practicing previously. At this point, I can't say a lot different or a lot better of Stuart Young. He still has quite a bit of baggage, as does any politician. Most politicians do. I mean, let's be fair in that a sense that most politicians carry quite a lot of baggage. If Stuart Young is able to navigate through these challenges, and if he is able to stand up on a platform and present not only his vision and his plan, but we see how he carries about himself, we get a better sense of his political ideology, then I would say that is something to look forward to. That is a sense of hope, and that is a sense of excitement. But bear in mind, this is something that only took place last week, Saturday. You know, so now is when this entire transformation takes place. Now is when a transition between Dr. Keith Rowley and Stuart Young takes place. If Stuart Young is different, great. But was Stuart Young selected because he was different and he could bring around something new? Or because he's just a continuation of what currently exists? That is a question that in time will be answered based off of what is presented to us.
It's one of those things where do you give them the chance to succeed and or fail, or do you jump the gun? It's just one of those things about life. Sometimes you get it right, sometimes you don't. With that said, that's a good way to end it off. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll open the phone lines, close out the week. Stay tuned. This is Talking About WESN, the content capital. Shawn Michael Small, Keaton Shaw of AM Prime. We'll be right back after this.
Hi, I'm Claudette, radiographer at the radiology departments at the community hospital. We offer high-quality service with state-of-the-art equipment in X-ray, ultrasound, CT, and mammogram. Come, our friendly staff awaits you.
Give us a call at 235-5479.
The Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
Where good private health care is affordable.
Maybe he landed here totally by coincidence. But if by chance he's admiring your fresh coat of Benjamin Moore soft sky blue, well, that's a pretty high compliment. Coming from an expert.
Transform your home with PCU Plus. From stylish furniture to the latest appliances, we have everything you need to create your perfect space. At PCU Plus, we offer fair prices and affordable financing options that are cheaper than hire purchase agreements. With convenient locations in San Fernando, Tobago, Arima, and our lifestyle showroom in Barataria, you're never far from the best deals. Visit PCU Plus today and discover why we're the top choice for quality furniture and appliances. PCU Plus. Quality you trust, prices you'll love. Visit one of our locations or find us online to start transforming your home today.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today. Simon's Musical Supplies Limited. We are the specialist in new and used musical instruments, carrying top brands like Yamaha, Pearl River pianos, vinyl and Sabian cymbals, Remo and Evans drumheads and Fender guitars, just to name a few. Also a wide assortment of music books, pan and accessories. At Simon's, we service what we sell. Trust the leader. Call us now at 625-6412 or visit us at 20 Board Street, Port of Spain.
And we're back here talking about the WESN, Shaw Michael Small, and the Shaw of AM Prime and Talking Point, as I have been thoroughly corrected by my co-host, Mr. Keaton Shaw. Keaton Shaw is here with us, and we have our first caller for the morning. Just a reminder, mute your televisions when you are on air, on the phone with us, because there's a delay. Please do not try to follow the show while speaking on the telephone. It will only confuse you and potentially us as well. Now, for our first caller of the day, Digger Martin, you're on the line. Good morning, caller, you're on here.
Good morning, Mr. Small and Mr. Shah.
Morning.
Good morning.
Let me address the education policy that the PNM has decimated. And I'm going to identify 3 areas that they have failed miserably. The curricula for SEA, the CAC component, they removed it immediately. That was one of the best part of the syllabi to have basically a seamless transfer into the secondary school. I understood that. I was part of that. I understood how important that was. The second thing they have done, they have not fulfilled early childhood. Those early childhood centers that have lived in the wilderness, that basically was hindrance and a challenge to a lot of parents. And the third issue is the physical infrastructure, hanging all over the place. So those 3 issues tells it all. Which the Biden Prime Minister, the designated Prime Minister, to say he's going to look at this curriculum for young people, I think he should focus that, because that is, if you're a parent, if you're a part of the education, you would have seen how important and how good that CAC component is. Is that to credibility, the last parliament does not go well. And I just that word, the Cambridge word for a new word in the dictionary. They haven't come back to me yet because I am a part of their.
Caller? We have lost the caller.
Yes,
And I
think
gave
we lost
the
the
meaning
caller.
of barrier. Hello?
Yes.
Hello? You hear me now?
Yeah,
Yes,
we
we
can
hear
hear
you,
you.
yes.
Yeah, we can hear you now, caller. Please
Good,
continue.
right. I want to address the barrier board and the failure to be faithful to the fiduciary responsibility of it. Now, I see a newspaper trying to soften the theft of $1 million or so. And you know what the newspaper say? I'm not going to call it because it is the mouthpiece of the current government. They claw back 75% of the money that was stolen. I want to know where is the other 25%? Who is responsible for it? Who is the potential thief? And who facilitated that transfer? I think they are protected because there's a deeper issue for fiduciary responsibility. Because Paria and the board, you remember that criminal manslaughter? They stole the lives of 4 divers, including the livelihood of the people involved, the family of the divers who lost their lives. So that is a theft too. That is a theft, and that is how should I say, a black spot on the Paria board, and by extension, the board appointment of this government and the people who they choose to run state organization. Go on and have a nice day.
Thank you, caller. We have another
Thank
caller
you very
from
much, caller.
Maraval. Good morning, caller. You're on here.
Hi. Hi, good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Happy New Year to both of you. I didn't call you for the New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you as well.
I'm sorry if they put Stuart Young to be Prime Minister. I am telling you no. I vote one time in my life, and if I had to vote to correct this place, I will vote again. Because that little boy mouth is too nasty. You watch a big woman and call her all kind of names, and they Prime Minister want to put him in there. What about every federal members and everybody else who was there? You come like from nothing. Like I never see come send you running there, and he put in there. What you put in there for? Because you have a nasty mouth like him? I am sorry. I am not going to vote for that little imps. I don't care who say I am. What is scholar? He have no respect. He don't have no respect, so I would have no respect for him. And he's a stupid little boy. I'm sorry about that. I just talk it as I see it. It have other people there. What about Amy Brown? When Amy Brown went up against him, he put him in Brazil. When Penelope Beckers go up against him, he put she, I don't know where he put she, but now they want to vote for her. Everybody come and say, everybody vote for him. How everybody could vote for him? When you see it on TV, everybody was both sides, it depends. Right? I don't know what happened in this meeting on Saturday that is everybody vote for him. I am sorry, and I will vote, if I could have voted 100 times, I would vote here. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kola, for your contribution. You have a democratic right and exercise that, and you're free to vote. As it relates to Stuart Young, I will not defend the comments of which you made in Parliament. I think it was ridiculous, to say the least. Utterly disrespectful and nasty. And such politics or comments do not belong in our Parliament and should never come from anyone. That being said, and I will take the flak for this, I think a number of our politicians have a lot of flaws and have made some disrespectful comments. I will not defend them either. But I await to see what transpires and what happens. I still think that there is opportunity and chance for change and for change for the better. So we could be proven wrong, but you have every right to go and exercise your vote. And if that is your opinion, go for it.
The thing is, it's said that this is more common than we think in Parliament. The problem is, I don't think the wider population will care about things like that. They will only be concerned with what they're exposed to, and those that don't like it, it's not, we can't tell them, well, no, they all do it in Parliament. They all speak like this. That's not really going to register with the wider population who, I know what I saw, and that's the example that I saw, and I don't appreciate. And yes, that is a very real thing that Stuart Young will have to overcome, even in his own constituency. Right? We have Shagonas on the line. Good morning, caller. You're on air. Caller, good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, good day, gentlemen. Good day, gentlemen.
Turn on your TV.
Sorry, Professor. Go ahead. We can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. I don't know. Recently, I got a notification from WASA that it was visiting premises to improve their service. But when they came to me, the question wasn't, I couldn't see how they were going to improve the service. And then it became clear to me that what they were doing is updating the customer base. Now, why is that necessary? Because with these things like what Karen did with property tax, that would cover all the services available to the property. And a copy of that used to be sent to WhatsApp. Now, this is about the fourth time they're doing this exercise, at least. And all they need to correct this exercise, and Karen confirmed this, I think, last week or week before, is publish the list, have it available either online or you could, people who not are familiar with line could go to the tax office and have it checked and see it is correct. I mentioned before that I couldn't find mine at all. I go to the next time, they tell me, no, it's not done yet. So in the end, I see a guy checking something on a map, and when I check it, he had all the properties photographed. So I said, look, get 8th Street. Right, I say, look, that's my house. Then when I look at it, they have a different name. Now the person name they have, I'm my neighbor, I went and talked to him. We went up there, we give them all the information, I carry my deed, everything for them. And then they give me a document to go and pay. You know, when I go to pay, they want to give me a receipt with the same neighbor name on it. This place gone mad. I proved that yesterday to you. Any questions?
Professor, no, but I thank you very much for that story. I thank you very much for sharing us that tale of...
Okay,
I can't help but laugh. It's a serious thing. I can't help but laugh.
People might feel insulted,
but if you went through this property tax exercise, shouldn't all of these utilities have an understanding of exactly who is
How can you give a receipt of a different name, Keaton, when he has his name on the deed that he's presenting to pay his tax? To me, people might not like it, but to me, that implies a level of incompetence that I'm left speechless by. Not necessarily with the clerk, it could be with the process, and whoever made the process and instructed the clerk. So we have a different show going on Sunny Line. Good morning, caller, you're on air. Caller, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Go ahead, caller, you're on air.
Yes, good morning. I heard the caller before stating that it was very disrespectful of Stuart Young to disrespect the Prime Minister. But you have to remember, the same opposition leader stood up and called the Prime Minister an Oreo, which was a total disrespect to the Africans. And now it's the same Africans you'll be coming back to look for votes. So nobody is talking about the disrespect that was given to Rowley. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Thank you, caller. I understand what you're saying, but I don't think that the caller from Maraval was speaking as a UNC supporter or a Kamala supporter. I think she was speaking in the silo of, I did not appreciate this level of speech from Stuart Young. And it's the most recent one, and to be fair to her, you are thinking as an Afro-Trinidadian with an Afro-Trinidadian slur, or African, or slur against black people. She's speaking as a woman with regards to a slur potentially against women. So I think, I understand where you're coming from, but the emotion level is similar.
And I'll tell you why. Because at the end of the day, it just goes to show that the kind of politics that we come in, and it seems as though when it's easy for a side whom we align to, for us to forgive them if time passes. And in some instances, even defend it, sir. It seems as though that's the case in Toronto, but sorry.
I think in this case, Keaton, the caller needs to be careful. Two wrongs at times do not make a right. You can't offset one with the other. Yeah.
No, you are correct. Two wrongs do not make a right. But the entire point of it is, it comes back to what I was saying. Politicians have made comments on both sides that are unnecessary, that are hateful, that are distasteful, frustrating, nasty, disgusting. All those adjectives. Yeah? However, that being said, we can't just say, okay, one did it, the other one did it, is okay. Or I'll defend this one, but I disagree with that one. No, it can't be that. Stand up for what is right and knock out what is wrong. As far as I'm concerned, I am still willing to give Stuart Young a chance, and I hope that over time he is forgiven. But he has to prove himself to be forgiven from that. And the opposition leader did make those comments, and the call is right. People tend to forget that. So let's try and, ladies and gentlemen, I don't want this to turn into a hate game. I don't want this to turn into a tit for tat or even a game of racism.
My thing is, I understand both callers. Like I said, one as a woman is upset over the insult to another woman. One as a black man is upset with regards to the insult to another black man. To some extent, the emotions are actually more similar than dissimilar. But again, yes, the unfortunate thing is, politics is this kind of weird zero-sum game sometimes where, at least as long as it's a two-person race, yes, if she doesn't want to vote for Stuart Young and wants to vote against him, she would technically have to vote for the UNC, right? So I kind of understand where the last caller was coming from, but I don't necessarily think that was her motivations. It's not a support for Kamala, it is a distaste or dislike for Stuart Young, at least in the moment. Maybe, as you say, he can find a way to earn her forgiveness. I'm not entirely sure. It all depends. We have another caller.
Mount Lambert is with us.
Mount Lambert, good morning, caller. You're on here.
Right, good morning. I was just want to comment on the criticism being leveled against Stuart Young. Now, I understand that the statement that he made was inappropriate. But, I want to say that he who is without sin should cast the first stone. Because I'm sure that we all, in our private moments, make statements. Hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
Right. I'm sure that we all, in our private moments with our friends, may make statements that may be worse. And I'm saying that the thing is that I want to applaud Mr. Young because he had the humility to come back and apologize to the Parliament and to the people of this country and to Kamala. So I'm saying that I haven't seen that in the character of the opposition leader. And I want to say that in that regard, I want to lift Mr. Young 2 levels above the opposition leader. Thank you.
Thank you, caller.
Thank you, caller. Very interesting take on it. Thank you.
The thing
in that regard, people are going to respond by saying he was forced to apologize because he caved into public pressure, etc., etc. Main fact is he did apologize. Whether or not he was genuine, again, I want to see different from Stuart Young going forward, and I'm willing to give him the opportunity and the chance. Now, listen, yes, caller, people make such comments, such derogatory comments in their personal life, in their private life, and they might mean it as jokes, or even if they're angry, if they're hateful, whatever the case may be, they do. You're absolutely correct. You're very much correct. I just hope that going forward, it's not seen on a political platform or in Parliament because it does not belong there. We need to do more good and speak more good than harm. And these things create a lot of division.
My thing is, I understand, caller, where you're coming from, and generally, I think you're right. It's not a good place to start. He who is without sin. And especially if you have politicians kind of speaking out against each other, then yes, this very much applies because they're on an equal level. Here's the thing, though. To compare a politician who is potentially going to be the prime minister of the country to the common citizen, I think that is somewhat incorrect because one would hope that the person who we choose to lead us will be better, will not be the average, will not be just another guy, will not be someone with the same levels of feelings that the common person has. Because the responsibilities of the average citizen is centered around themselves, maybe their family, so forth. Average responsibilities, that's fine. The responsibility of the leader of a nation is to be responsible for not just all of us, but also for all within the future, because what you do impacts the future as well. So that's the thing. We should hope for better than average. So I don't necessarily want to, we all make mistakes. Yes, to some extent, we give that leeway of his humanity being able to make mistakes, but we should strive for someone who is exceptional in such an important role. And the thing is, I understand as well, I'm not necessarily going to say you're wrong to compare him to Kamala in the way that you did, but I will say this. Let's just assume that it's true, that he is better than Kamala. That in and of itself should not necessarily be the be-all and end-all of the barometer, because you can be better than someone and still be bad. Stuart Young, to some extent, needs to prove that he is of good quality by his own merits. He is not good quality just because he's better than the other person. Better than could still be bad. Better than could still be not good enough. Now, we don't know what he's going to be like in the role of Prime Minister, so as Keaton said, he can prove it to us with regards to how he acts. Because I am not one of the people, I don't fully agree that his track record is all bad. I have heard good things about his time as a minister in various portfolios, right? I have seen certain things out of him that I like, at least technically as compared to a lot of his peers. But now that he's going to take the big job, he has to be good on his own merits, not just better than everybody else.
Me personally, Sean, when it comes to this thing about better than, I think we are just looking at who's the less of two evils.
Basically,
You know,
exactly.
yeah, and that's usually how our politics plays. So who's the less of two evils? And I think it's time that this should have been cut out a long time ago. But I am hoping that with these new faces, younger people, and hopefully more youth getting involved in politics, or even formulating opinions, having conversations, being a part of these debates, I hope that this will change in time. This is a very, very crucial time for Trinidad and Tobago. Right? It's pivotal where we are at. And I think that though there's a lot of potential and there's a lot of opportunity that exists, is whether or not we are willing to take it. Now, in the instance of Stuart Young and the criticisms leveled at Stuart Young, yes, there are criticisms aimed at Stuart Young. Of course, there are question marks surrounding him, and yet he has baggage. That being said, I actually still see a lot of potential in him. I do. I'm seeing that right now. I see a lot of potential in him, and I see that he has leadership qualities, and he is a statesman. He carries himself quite well. Let us see if that equates to a good tenure as prime minister. He's seeing out the term before the general election. It doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to need the PNM in the next general election. I can't see it being otherwise, but it doesn't necessarily mean that. Who knows? But the point is, at this time, Stuart Young is going to be the next Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. And let us put it this way. You are going to have a lot of people who want to see the absolute worst of you, and even want to see the absolute worst in you. Go and prove all of them wrong. Go and disappoint them. Go and let down all of them. Prove all of us wrong. You know? And that in itself is something I hope happens.
Well, I just want to switch gears to close out the week, something I wasn't able to get to in the last couple of days, but I think it's important to point out, and maybe it might speak to this with our media ambassador on Monday, but both, I think last weekend and in the middle of this week, Ethan, there was two similar incidents of a Facebook marketplace scam gone wrong, where victims were robbed of approximately $30,000 in cash, among other things. I'm not entirely sure. They're so similar because it was with regards to a specific model of car that the stories, they might seem like they're the same story, but they happen in different parts of the Port of Spain area. So with that said, Keaton, this is just one of those things where the call has come out multiple times. Be wary about transactions for high-priced assets on online shopping, things like Facebook Marketplace. Scammers are willing to go after you. Yes, as a state emergency, they still want to rob you of your valuables, not just your cash, your phones. In one case, the woman's spectacles were stolen. I don't understand that one, right? Please be more careful when you're looking to go online to find a deal. Sometimes a deal might be too good to be true. But with that said, we still need to be nice to each other.
And not just online. Sorry, Sean, not just online.
Go ahead.
Generally.
Exactly.
Not just online.
Exactly.
Generally. Be smart about the little wealth that you have. Be very, very smart. Protect the little wealth that you have.
Yes, and don't think as a state emergency, the common criminals are not going to be out. They're going to be out. They're going to continue to do what they do. So stay safe out there. Remember your allegiance to the Republic. And it's nice to be nice. Shah of WESN, close us out for the week.
Today is a good day to have a good day and a great weekend ahead. And we'll see you again bright and early. Well, I will see you bright and early on Monday morning. And Sean will see you just a bit later on. But until then, stay strong, stay safe, keep well, laugh a little bit, and be happy. We need some of that in our life. We'll see you again very soon. Bye-bye.
WESN.
Attention everyone! The Office of the Prime Minister Communications has launched a brand new WhatsApp channel designed to keep you informed and connected like never before. Get real-time updates, breaking news, and important information directly from the source. With our WhatsApp channel, you'll always know what's happening when it's happening. Joining is easy. Use your phone camera, scan this QR code, tap follow, and that's it. You're in. Be sure to tap the notification bell to never miss an update. Stay informed, stay empowered. Join the conversation with the Office of the Prime Minister Communications WhatsApp channel today.